Hello everyone! Welcome to my 2018 Mermay sketchbook tour. I am trying out a new camera and microphone setup today, as well as trying out filming and talking at the same time. So do forgive any camera jiggles and stuttering on my part. So in today's video I'm going to talk about the inspiration for some of my illustrations, as well as talk a little bit about the supplies that I used, and talk a bit about things that I like and dislike about each illustration. To start off, let's talk about the cover of the sketchbook. I made this sketchbook myself. If you saw the first video of this month, you'll already see how I've made that. I used chipboard for the cover. For the illustration, I used gouache, alcohol ink markers, white gel pen, and Faber-Castell fine liner. Now let's take a peek inside. You'll see that I alternated my sketch paper with my watercolor paper throughout this sketchbook because I can keep all my ideas and the illustrations together, so I can just flip back and forth from my idea page to my illustration page while I'm working on the illustration to make sure that I'm still kind of keeping it in the same vein, kind of keeping track of what I'm doing while I'm making my final illustration. So the first sea creature I chose to make a mermaid out of was a dolphin. I wanted to start off with something that I already knew how to draw, because I've drawn and painted some dolphins in the past. I also wanted to pick something that had very limited colors so I could play around a little bit more with the background and work a little bit more on an action pose, because that's one thing I wanted to work on with the sketchbook, was work on action poses, foreshortening, different angles that I can draw characters in. Just kind of get a really good grasp of anatomy, at least from the waist up, since, you know, that's the human half. And I'm pleased with how this one turned out. I like her outfit. I think I put more thought into her outfit than I did a lot of other of the mermaids that I did. The next is a pufferfish. And if you watched the first video, you know I was excited to do this one. I made a list of all the fish that I wanted to turn into mermaids, and when I wrote down pufferfish, I immediately had an idea of what I wanted to do. But when it came to choosing a pose, I wasn't sure what I wanted to go for. I didn't know if I wanted to go for a more relaxed pose, or if I wanted to have her, you know, all puffed up like she's got scared or something. So I wasn't sure. I sketched a lot of different ideas. I ended up going with a more relaxed, neutral pose. And this is the first illustration that I put my little fishies in. And then we have a koi mermaid. I didn't sketch as much for this one because I didn't like any of my sketches. I didn't like how they were turning out. So I started working with some poses, and I immediately liked this one, so I said, well, I'm just gonna go for it. And the face will look however the face turns out looking, and it ended up looking much better than my sketches. I think this one ended up being the most popular of all the mermaids that I did. I love the bright colors. I need to work in bright colors more often. I usually choose more muted tones, but she just looks so elegant. And I mean, that hair, I wish I had this hair. I would probably hate it if I had such thick long hair, but you know, I can dream. Then we have a sea dragon. For this illustration, I really wanted to push the foreshortening and work a little bit more on interesting poses. That's how she turned out. I love the bright colors. I kind of wish for this one I had not done such a busy background. I had made it more neutral because she has so many colors and so much going on. And again, you see I have a little fishy here caught in a bubble. Then we have a flying fish, and this one I didn't sketch for much at all because I immediately knew what I wanted to do. Looking back on it, I should have sketched out a little bit more, or at least put her in a frame, kind of like I do with some of my others. Let's see, which one do I have? Like this one. I have a little frame box that kind of emulates the page, so you kind of know where she's going to fit onto the paper. I did not do that for this one. And I wish I had, because she ended up being a little too long, and I should have made her either smaller on the page or gave her a pose that would allow for that length and for her not to be, half off the paper. I ended up having to shorten her a little bit. I still like the illustration. I love how her little fins turned out. I'm also very happy with the clouds, especially that one in particular. I always have a favorite cloud of all the clouds that I've done. Next, we have the first Merman, a blue Tang. I did not know what pose I wanted. I sketched a bunch of different poses. I knew I wanted him to be kind of like a hunter, so he has like a harpoon instead of like a spear. And here's how he turned out. As you notice, the face that I sketched, ooh, I made the camera bounce. The face that I sketched and the face he ended up with are a little bit different. That's another thing that I want to work on, is consistently drawing the same character multiple times and you are still able to recognize him. I have gotten better at this because I've been working with making mini comics, and I'm also trying to work in 2D hand-drawn animation. So I am getting better, but that is another thing that I want to work on. And here we have a jellyfish. I use the same materials for this illustration that I use for all the others, except for I added some gouache on top. That's how I made the jellyfish. I wanted to go with a darker background and have the jellyfish kind of stand out from it. Instead of using the black outline that I do for most of my other illustrations, I used a white outline. It's the same white gel pen that I used for the cover of the sketchbook. I love this one. This is one of my top 5 favorites. I can't pick an ultimate favorite, but I can tell you the top 5 favorites of all of the ones that I did. So this is one of them. Then we have an angelfish. Now, none of the sketches look like the final illustration. I wanted to give her these long lashes to kind of replicate the long fins that angelfish have, the long pointy fins. I wanted to give her long pointy eyelashes. But I couldn't figure out how I wanted to do that, and I didn't like either of these sketches that I did, so I ended up going with something completely different. I did go with this pose here, and I'm happier with the final illustration than I was with my sketches. And I came across this problem a couple times where the darker and more saturated colors tended to get this blotchy effect. I don't know if this had to do with my application or if this had to do with the paint itself. For some of them I used a water brush. I used this water brush right here. And for some of them I used just a regular round watercolor brush. And I ended up with the same result using both. So I don't know if it's just the certain paints. It seemed to be when I used the brown and when I used the Payne's gray that I had this problem, so maybe it was just those 2 paints. Maybe they had a little more filler in them and that made them not flow quite as well. But I am happy with this illustration, despite the slightly blotchy finish it has. Next is a humpback whale. Now for this one, I could have gone with a very neutral pose like this and just given her the fins that a humpback whale has, but the whales, they tend to have a very distinctive bend to their pose, like a crook, like it's just a very kind of sharper bend. So I played around a lot with this same pose. I just drew it a bunch of times until I finally figured out how I wanted to do that. And let me turn that so you can see it. This is how she turned out. Another one of my top 5 favorites. I love that just bit of orange in there because everything was blue and I did not want everything to be just one monochromatic color, and her skin did stand out because she's got kind of a peach skin tone, but I also wanted to add a little bit more just to add a little bit of spice to it. I don't know, just add a little something to it. And next up, you'll see the Betta Fish, which I did for my second video of Mermay. Now, if you notice, they're not all in the same order that I posted them online. This is because I would turn to a random page and I would sketch a little, and I might sketch ideas for 5 different mermaids in one day, just anytime I had time to sit down and just work on some sketches. So they're not all in the same order that I finished them in. I finished them in the same order that I posted them, but they're not in the sketchbook in the same order that they're posted, if that makes sense. So if you've already seen the video for this one, you already know how it turned out. And then we have another of my top 5 favorites. I think this is number 3. I hope I don't run out of top 5 favorites before I run out of favorites. But this is another one that I liked. I sketched for a long time before I decided what I even wanted to do. Pretty much this whole top half I discarded. I just like, no, I don't like any of that. So I started looking into different octopus or octopi that I wanted to use, that I wanted to base my mermaids on. And if you follow me on any of my social media, you already know who Stuart is. He is an original character of mine, and he's a little octopus. So I love drawing octopi, octopuses. I think when I researched it, it's correct both ways. So however you want to pronounce it is a-okay. I'm just gonna say octopi, just for the sake of this video and continuity. So I already knew how to draw octopi, and I love drawing octopi. So I couldn't decide what kind of octopus that I wanted to base my mermaid on, so I just ended up going with my 2 favorites, which are the Dumbo octopus and the reef octopus. The Dumbo octopus has these little ear flaps. They're not really ear flaps, but that's what they look like. And the reef octopus has this blue and brown kind of mottled look to it, which is kind of what I based Stuart's coloring on. He's much smaller than a reef octopus though. So I'm very, very, very happy with this one. And here's the little sad reef octopus being comforted by her friend the Dumbo octopus. And here we have our next Merman. I did not know what I wanted to do for a lionfish. At first I thought I wanted to do like a samurai. I don't know why the fins kind of reminded me of a samurai's outfit, but that was my initial reaction, was to go with a samurai. But then I thought, none of my other mermaids have a lot as far as clothing. They have like one simple top, and I didn't want to try to make him kind of fit in with all the other illustrations and give him all this armor. So I kept him simple. And he's just a merman exploring a shipwreck. Now the one thing I wish I hadn't done is I wish I had not made the shipwreck itself brown. I wish I had made this gray or green, kind of like algae's growing on it, and then brought out the red in his fins so he would have really stood out from the background. But regardless of that, I'm very happy with the line art that I did for this and the character design. And next we have another of my favorites, the Anglerfish. Now, most people, when they think of an anglerfish, they think of scary. And I have seen a lot of different versions of anglerfish mermaids that are very eerie and creepy, and I don't really like to paint and draw creepy things. I wanted to kind of play down the creepy element and kind of give some cuteness to this anglerfish. I knew that I wanted to do something with the little snaggly teeth that they have, and then I started thinking, well, what would you do with a little nightlight on your forehead down at the bottom of the ocean? And so here we have our little bookworm anglerfish. For the buggy, glassy eyes that anglerfish have, I just gave her a pair of glasses that the light is reflecting on so you can't see her actual eyes behind the lenses. But here she is reading her book, and I don't ask me how don't ask me how they make their books waterproof. It might be like kelp paper and they use squid ink. I'm so funny. But here she is with her piles of books. And this might even be some more books back there, or they could be rocks. You never know. And I'm very happy with the overall look of this illustration. Usually I'm just happy about the mermaid or about a couple elements in it. But this one I'm happy about every single part of it. And then we have the Mother's Day Mermaid illustration that I did, which was a beluga whale. I think this is the only other one, except for the octopi illustration, that has more than one mermaid in it. I wanted to do a mother mermaid and her children. At first I didn't know if I wanted to just have one kid or if I wanted to have two. I decided to go with two. I gave them these little very thick bangs and almost this bowl cut look to it, to kind of emulate the little bulbous forehead that beluga whales have. And then we have an axolotl. For this one I first wanted to do a mermaid and have the little frills be like pigtails. But then I started sketching and it just ended up looking more like a boy, a merboy. So we have another merman. And here's how he turned out. I love how I made the little frills into like where his ears are, and I gave him a very wide mouth to kind of make it look a little bit like the axolotl's really wide face, and they have the big dark eyes. I don't think my foreshortening worked out quite as well on this one as it does on some others. It's like his body just kind of disappears behind him. But still, it kind of gets the point across. And here is another one that I did a video of. And is the only sketch that I did not do with my pen. I did it with colored pencil because I could not find my pen that day. And here's how she turned out. This is probably the brightest colored illustration that I did all month long. And I love it. Again, I need to work more with bright colors. And for this illustration, I did not have any inspiration at all. I love seahorses. They are adorable. They're one of my favorites. And I just could not think of what I wanted to do. I think I was just lacking in inspiration that day. I just had no motivation to paint. So finally I just went and started looking at photos of people, just random people. And I came across these photos of some Indian actresses. So that inspired me and I was like, let's do an Indian mermaid. So here's how she turned out. I took my inspiration from kind of the outfits that they wear in Bollywood films and the long, thick hair. I mean, she's got a lot of hair. If she can make a full-size bun and still have all of that hair, she's got a lot of hair. So I ended up being very happy with the outcome, even though at first I had no inspiration. And next we have a shark merman. For this one, I went off an old sketch that I had done of a shark swimming. It's like the top view of a shark swimming through shallow water, and all the fish are like partying before him because they don't want to be eaten. And you can see his shadow, and I just thought that was so cool. I like the water texture, the sun filtering through the water and making these little ripple effects on the floor of the ocean, and the shadows of the fish and the shark. I'm happy with how this one turned out. He ended up being a little short. Like his tail is a little bit short compared to his body, but I couldn't fit him on the page, so I did have to shorten him just a little bit. And next we have a seal mermaid. And here's how she turned out. I even tried to make her pose very similar to a seal's, where her, she's got the little flipper hands and her little seal friends peeking up over the rock. Then we have a goldfish. Now I could have just done a plain ordinary goldfish, but I wanted to go for more of the fancy goldfish that have the long flowy fins. I wanted her to look very gold, and like she's very shimmery. There's a lot of light reflecting on her. And she's so bright she even turns the water around her to a greenish shade. Then we have a parrot fish. I wasn't as inspired for the pose on this one. I really just wanted to play around with the colors and the pattern on her. And then after I did this gradient in the water and I started working on her, I decided to make the fish orange to really just stand out quite a bit from everything else, add a little bit of contrast. They ended up looking like goldfish, like not goldfish pet goldfish, but goldfish like cheese cracker goldfish. Which is fine, she has goldfish buddies. And next we have a narwhal. And immediately I thought unicorn. I didn't do a lot of sketching for this one because I knew what I wanted it to look like, and I just went straight into the illustration. The long eyelashes that I didn't get to do on the angelfish, I ended up doing on this one because I wanted it to look a little more elegant, and she has a very basic tail. She doesn't have a whole lot of ornamentation or a whole lot of interest in the actual body, so I wanted to add a little more interest to her face. So I gave her the long lashes. She's got this little mysterious look to her. Then we have an eel. And for this one I wanted to go with more angular features for my character. And I didn't play around too much with the pose because I figured she's very, snaky and can wrap around anything, so I don't really need to worry about structure with this one. And I'm also very, very pleased with this one. I love her neon green hair, and I like the amount of detail that I put into the background and her surroundings. I like how she's snaking around the coral. And the little sea urchins, they look like soot sprites from Spirited Away. Then we have a squid mermaid. And this one was in great danger of looking just like the octopus mermaid. And so I was trying to figure out how to get around that and make it look different. And so I just gave her a large bun that kind of hangs down in the back and elongates her head a little bit, so she looks a little bit more squid-like than octopus-like because squids have longer bodies. And I also made her a little bit taller than the octopus mermaids. And then I thought, I haven't really given any of the mermaids pets, and I haven't had any other sea creatures in there but these little fish. So I decided to do little sea turtles. She's got sea turtle pets. And I love the sassy expression she has. This is another of my top 5 favorites, and I think I've exhausted my favorites, so I can't have any more. And I ran into the same problem that I had with the angelfish, where the darker, more saturated colors kind of got this splotchy, streaky appearance. I ended up adding 3 layers to the body so that I could reduce the amount of splotches, and it did help a lot. But there's still a few splotches here and there. And we have a killer whale mermaid. At first I was like, let's go for action pose, let's have her crashing through the ice. And then I was like, what's her motive for crashing through the ice? Except to, hurt her fist. So I decided to give her a very neutral pose and just have her kind of chilling out on an iceberg. I thought about having a seal here, but then I was like, killer whales eat seals. Do I really want to put a seal there? And it's like she's telling him that she's gonna eat him. That wouldn't be a very pleasant conversation, so I decided not to put a seal there. And, well, I don't have a name here. I don't have written what I... We'll fix that right now. There, it's fixed. We have a blue sea slug. I know that does not sound very glamorous, does it? But I think these are gorgeous little creatures. They're, I believe they are highly venomous. Or is it poisonous? If it bites you and you die, it's venomous. And if you bite it and you die, it's poisonous. I do believe that it is venomous because I know if you touch it, it can actually sting you, so that would be venomous. But it is beautiful. Another example of foreshortening that didn't quite go to plan. I probably should have wrapped her tail and had it coming back so it looked a little bit, so it kind of added to the foreshortening effect, whereas it kind of looks like she's doubled over and her tail's just hanging there. I should have worked a little bit more with the pose. But I'm still very happy with how it turned out. I love the coloring, and I didn't want to do blue water since she's all blue, so I made the water a little bit more green, and it added a lot of bubbles. Then we have a Mandarin Goby, another one that I did not do a lot of sketching for because I already knew kind of the pose that I wanted. I had a pose in my head. I didn't know which mermaid I wanted to use it for, so I decided to use it for her. And she ended up being beautiful. I mean, look at all those colors. I love the orange and the turquoise and teal. I love it all together. It's so beautiful. And she's got all these intricate little patterns. I realized after I was finished that she has a kind of part of your world from the Little Mermaid pose going on. That wasn't my original intention, but it ended up being that way, so. And we have a swordfish, and you can't have a swordfish mermaid without giving her a sword. I think she's got a little bit of a Wonder Woman kind of look to her. I wanted to give her a little bit of armor, like she's going off to vanquish her foes. And she's got a little fishy friend, though he probably thinks his life is in danger. But, like I said, she's going off to vanquish her foes. She doesn't have time for sushi. Then we have a Manta Ray. And for this one, I really wanted a strong action pose because I haven't had a whole lot of action poses recently. And I wanted to bring the little fishies back because I hadn't done a lot of fish in a while. So here she is, slipstreaming through the water in her sporty outfit. And all the fish just moving out of her way because here she comes. And lastly but not leastly, we have our manatee. They are so cute and squishy. And I really wanted to bring the cute factor, so I went with this adorable little curious looking mermaid. And here's another one that I ran into the problem of the blotchy finish to the watercolor. But for this one I wanted to add a lot of texture anyways, so the splotchy effect didn't really hinder the end result that much. And now that you have seen all of my mermaids, it's time to talk about the supplies that I used. For all of the illustrations, I used these koi watercolors. They're a travel watercolor set. And it's actually quite a mess right now. Ignore the little sponges. Oh, they're dirty on both sides. Just ignore it. Just ignore the dirty sponges. I haven't cleaned my palette in a little while. But here are all the colors that come with it. It's very versatile. And it comes with a water brush, but I'm not as comfortable using that water brush as I am using my Pentel water brush, which is this one. And you know this little fella. For the outlines, I use this micron pen. I pretty much stuck with size 3 for the details, and for the outline of the jellyfish, I use my Jelly Roll gel pen. For the initial sketches, I used this Prismacolor very thin colored pencil in orange. I think a couple of them I used purple, but most of them were this orange. I used this Marie's gouache, and that was only for the Jellyfish Mermaid. That's the only one I used gouache for. For any big spaces that I didn't want to use my water brush, I used this Creative Mark round brush with synthetic bristles. And for all of my sketches, they were all done with this Bic ballpoint pen, which are super cheap and super easy, and I do recommend trying to sketch with these because you will gain a lot of confidence when you start sketching with pen instead of using pencil. So I guess the question is now, what am I gonna do with all of these illustrations? Am I just gonna set them on a shelf and forget about them? Nope. I think I have a lot bigger plans for all of these illustrations. There's a couple things I want to do. One, I want to make some calendars, maybe make some coloring book pages with these. I also want to turn these into some prints, into some greeting cards, and I recently just got a button press, so I will be turning some of these illustrations, my favorites and everybody else's favorites, into little button pins. So let me know in the comments which ones you would like to see as buttons and any other suggestions you have for what I can do with these illustrations. And I will hopefully be opening up an Etsy shop soon, so everybody can go on and purchase whatever it is that I end up coming up with for these these illustrations. So let me know in the comments what you would like to see these sketches turned into. So I think that is it for our sketchbook tour. I hope you enjoyed. I'll try to leave some links for all of the supplies that I use in the description below, so check that out. And as you probably already know, each month I choose a new theme or a new project to work on. So for next month, I'm taking a little bit of a break. It's not really a break, it's just a break from learning new things. I want to do another request month. I did a request month in December of last year, and that was very popular, and I'm going to bring that back. So if you have any requests of things that you want me to paint or to draw, leave a comment, and I will be asking for suggestions every day. So any idea you can come up with for things you want me to sketch, just let me know. And also if you have suggestions for video topics, if you want me to do another sketchbook tour of some of my old sketchbooks, if you want me to show you how to make more sketchbooks, if you want me to do a resin tutorial, any suggestions that you have for subjects that you want to see or things you want me to talk about in the videos for next month, just let me know. Leave them in the comments below. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments as well. If you liked it, please leave a like, and if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe. I upload every week, and I don't think I've forgotten anything, but if I have, also check out the description box because I'll probably put a little bit more information in there. As always, have a great day. Bye.